Imagine discovering that the seemingly perfect life you built with your childhood sweetheart is built on lies and betrayal. Jessica and I had been married for 12 years, and our love story began when we were just 10 years old. I never had an interest in college, so after high school, I took an entry-level job as a draftsman at Desmond Engineering. A year later, Jessica and I got married, and the following year, we welcomed our twin girls, Emily and Emma. The early years were tough financially, but we carefully managed our money, and things eventually improved. I was still working as a draftsman, but I had moved up a few grades, so the pay was better, although still tight. We managed to save enough to buy a small house and 2 decent cars, not new, but not old-fashioned either. Jessica always wanted to be a housewife, and since we didn't need extra income, she never worked, which was fine with me. Both of us were healthy and in good shape. Jessica had put on a little weight since our wedding, but not much. She was just over 5 feet tall with dark brown hair and bangs, resembling a young Marie Osmond. I hadn't changed much either. I had played right tackle on the high school football team, so I was solid, but not flabby. About a year ago, Brian Lawson moved to Reading from Lancaster and got a job as a surveyor at Desmond Engineering. Brian and I had played football against each other in high school and quickly became friends. He was also married to his high school sweetheart, a redhead named Laura. Laura and Jessica hit it off immediately, despite Laura and Brian not having kids yet. They were perfect babysitters when we were at work. Brian and I enjoyed each other's company as a break from our wives, and Jessica and Laura did the same. They went shopping, attended parties and club meetings together, while Brian and I watched the girls and TV. Laura took a job as a secretary at Gilbert Engineering, just outside the city. About 6 months ago, I started noticing some changes. The PTA meetings, which used to be monthly, were now weekly, and despite Laura not having kids, she always went to them with Jessica. The frequency of Tupperware and Magic Chef parties increased, yet they never seemed to buy anything. They joined a book club, but never found time to read, and their shopping trips resulted in little to no purchases. Jessica's collection of fashionable lingerie grew, yet I never got to see her wear any of it. This began to bother me, but I kept my concerns to myself, as Brian didn't seem to notice or care. One night, about an hour after I put the girls to bed, Jessica came home from a basket party. She had showered before Laura picked her up and took another shower as soon as she got home, which struck me as odd. While she was in the shower, I checked the basket she brought back and found a set of black lace lingerie. Who wears black lace lingerie to a basket party? Out of curiosity, I checked her panties and found them wet and sticky. This was the first time I had ever snooped through her things, but tonight I also went through her purse and wallet. What caught my attention was her cell phone. She hadn't deleted a single call in the last week. Most calls were to and from Laura, but there were also numerous calls to and from contacts labeled KC, KH, and KW. It didn't take long for me to figure out that C stood for cell, H for home, and W for work. Checking her address book, I saw that Laura also had 3 numbers listed: Laura S, Laura H, and Laura W. Jessica's phone was impressively organized. I noted that Laura's work number had an extension, and when I checked KW's number, it matched Laura's work number but with a different extension. It wasn't hard to deduce that Jessica was communicating with someone at Laura's workplace, likely introduced by Laura. With Gilbert Engineering now closed for the day, I used Jessica's phone to call KW's number. The voicemail I reached said, "Hello, you've reached Kyle Simmons's desk. I'm not available right now, but if you leave your name and number, I'll get back to you as soon as I can." I hung up immediately after hearing the signal. It was way too easy. "John, are you heading to bed?" Jessica's voice floated from the doorway. "I'm almost done with this book. I'll come to bed as soon as I finish it, if I don't fall asleep on the couch first." I fully intended to sleep on the couch that night. It was a restless night, filled with thoughts about what I might have done wrong or could have done differently. It was a waste of time and mental energy. Every time I tried to focus on what to do next, my thoughts kept circling back to the past. The clock seemed to stand still. The only thing I knew for sure was that I wasn't going to take any blame for what had happened or what was going to happen. I woke up to the sounds of my daughters making breakfast. Jessica had encouraged them to take care of themselves rather than wait, which was a good idea and seemed to work well. As I stretched and scratched, Jessica entered the room. "You better hurry up, John, or you'll be late for work." "No problem. I'm not going to work today." "Why? You never miss work." Too many personal problems. I yawned and shuffled to the bathroom for a shower. When I returned, Jessica seemed puzzled. The girls had already left for school. I grabbed a cup of coffee and sat down at the table opposite my wife. She looked at me reluctantly, as if expecting something but not knowing what. "Tell me about your novel," I said, cutting to the chase. I almost knew she wasn't going to just open up and spill everything. "Be serious, John. Is that why you're moping? Do you really think I'm cheating on you?" "Yes. Now tell me about your novel." "We've been married for 12 years, John. Why would you even think such a thing?" "Jessica, I have work to do today, and I'm not going to sit here and play games with you. I'll ask you again. Tell me about your novel." My loving wife let out an exasperated sigh and leaned towards me. "John, it's all in your head. There is no romance here." "Well, I'd like to thank you for your honesty, but I can't right now, can I?" She leaned back in her chair and sipped her coffee as if she had taken control of the situation. "Can you answer me a few simple questions?" "Questions? Yes, John, of course. What would you like to know?" "Why do you go to PTA meetings every week, even though the PTA secretary says they only have monthly meetings and you haven't been to one in 6 months?" "I do not understand what you're saying," she responded, a little less confidently. "You and Laura go to non-existent PTA meetings every Tuesday. Why would you lie about something like that?" Jessica pondered the question for a while and then found the answer. "I'm truly sorry, John. It's ladies' night at Rosie's Cantina on Tuesday, and Laura and I go for 2-for-1 margaritas. We didn't want you and Brian to think we were messing around, so we didn't tell you. It was a mistake, and I'm very sorry. From now on, we will inform you." "Nice try, Jessica. Of course, you know that I will check this. I'm sure Laura will support you, but what about the people from Rosie's?" "John, you're making more out of this than it is. Why do you care so much? When you go to those little Tupperware parties and things like that, why do you shower before you leave and again when you get home?" "A lot of women smoke at these parties. When I come home, I want to get rid of the smell in my hair. It's not a big deal, John." "Why do you wear fancy underwear to these parties? You never wear sexy things for me unless it's a special night. Every evening you spend with these housewives, you wear your best. Why?" "I don't have a good answer to that question. I just want to feel dressed up sometimes when I go out." Her lies began to irritate me. It was time to put an end to this. I was angry, and it was difficult to control. "These are the panties you wore last night." I threw them on the table. "When you came home, the crotch was wet and covered in something sticky. I know what the hell sperm is, and I know it's not mine. Don't try to tell me you have a yeast infection, or I swear I will hit you." Jessica squirmed in her chair, trying not to look at me. There didn't seem to be a quick answer. "Damn it, Jessica. Why did you come home with stained panties last night? I want an answer." "Stop it, John. Just stop it. I can't stand it anymore. We've been married for 12 years. How can you treat me like this?" The continuous stream of lies and constant denial finally got to me. With all the strength I could muster, I threw my half-filled coffee cup across the room, smashing the front of the microwave. This time there was no doubt that I had Jessica's attention. I had never seen that expression on her face before because she had never seen me angry before. Leaning across the table, I looked directly at her and spoke louder than before. "Who the hell is Kyle Simmons?" She got out of the chair and backed toward the sink, trying to get away from me. "Last time, who the hell is Kyle Simmons?" "A friend, just a friend," she stammered, scared to death. "Did you have sex with him?" Yes, I had sex with him." "Did you have sex with him last night?" Yes, I did it. Stop it, John. Please stop this. I'm really sorry. Just stop, please." She stood at the sink and bawled like crazy. I took a cup out of the cupboard and poured myself some fresh coffee. As I started to sit down, Jessica's cell phone rang. Her eyes darted from me to the phone and back to me. "This is from Kyle. I think we better answer." I pressed the speakerphone button and answered the call. "Good morning, sugar. I just came to work and saw that last night you tried to call me on my work number. Did you forget something at home, Jessica, or should I say sugar?" Jessica seemed distressed. There was a moment of silence. "Jessica, are you here? Is there something wrong?" She looked at me with a petrified expression. I nodded back to her. "Ken," she hesitated. "My husband is here. He knows about us. He has his phone on speaker." Ken didn't hang up, but he didn't answer either. I felt obligated to let him off the hook. "Ken, good buddy, I have some things I need to do this morning, but I promise to come see you this afternoon." Maybe you should put 911 on speed dial. I ended the call and put the phone back in my pocket. Jessica just stood at the sink in her robe, shaking. I have to go. One more question. Who is Laura seeing? John, no. Please, don't make me. The second cup flew across the room and crashed into the tiled wall behind the sink. She jumped back and couldn't speak fast enough. Kevin Reynolds? I'll be back this afternoon. Remove all your belongings before this time. My mom will stay with the girls until we make other arrangements. Anything you can't fit in your car, I'll get for you. Let my mother know where you will be. Do not call me. She didn't move or say anything else as I walked out the door. Of course, I had no idea what to do next. I decided to go into the office and see Brian. I thought of him as a friend and felt that he should know what was going on. It was pretty easy to figure out that Laura met Kevin at work and became friends with him. Kyle was probably Kevin's friend who needed a date. I may have simplified this a bit, but I thought it was close enough. Brian was not in the office. He was on site setting some bets or something like that. I called him on his cell phone. Brian, I don't want to bother you, but I have bad news. Is someone injured? Not yet, but they will be. What the hell are you talking about, John? Jessica and Laura got themselves a couple of boyfriends on all those nights when they had to go to meetings and Tupperware parties. They actually got together. Are you sure? I don't believe you, John. Sounds like some kind of nonsense to me. Ask Laura about a guy named Kevin Reynolds. He works with her at Gilbert. I think she introduced Jessica to another guy from there. Damn, are you sure? Damn it, John, I know Kevin Reynolds. We were in the same graduating class. What about a guy named Kyle Simmons? Yes, him too. Tall, skinny guy. Brian, I believe Jessica is going to warn Laura as soon as she can. Jessica gave me a whole lot of crap this morning before I pinned her down. I'm sure you'll get the same from Laura. Brian hung up, and I went to HR to ask for a short leave. I didn't feel like working right now. It only took 10 minutes to transfer all the work I was doing to another draftsman. Around the same time, Jessica's cell phone rang. Caller ID showed it was Laura. What on earth is happening? Laura exclaimed. Billy just called me. He showed up at the office and it seems someone told him something. I didn't respond. Jessica, are you there? This isn't the right time for jokes. Hi, Laura, this is John. I had to use Jessica's phone this morning because mine died. Laura, what are you talking about? What did someone tell Brian? My voice was tight with anger and disgust. I'm really sorry, John. I thought I was calling Jessica. I'll try to get her home. But you shouldn't bother her right now. She's busy packing all her stuff. What do you mean, packing her stuff? She's going back to live with her parents for a while. The silence on the other end was almost tangible. I could imagine the panic spreading through Laura's mind. I think it's more important for you to tell Ethan that Brian is on his way. He might need a head start. Oh no, this can't be happening. No. Laura hung up. Her nerves must have been shot. We only had one credit card, so canceling it was easy. We also had an ATM debit card, and it took me just 5 minutes to change the PIN. I wasn't sure what to do about the checking account, so I left it alone for now. I still needed it to pay bills and utilities. I just hoped Jessica didn't take any receipts with her. My phone rang again, but this time it was my own. Brian had chased Ethan Reynolds out of the Gilbert building and caught him in the parking lot. Brian was now in jail and wanted me to tell his brother from Lancaster to come and post bail for him. I called his brother. With nothing more I could do for Brian, I headed to Taco Bell for lunch. After eating, I visited my parents. I explained the situation to them. Mom was more than willing to help out with the girls. She stayed with me during the week, and the twins stayed with them on weekends. Now, it was time to confront Kyle Simmons. The guys in Gilbert's drafting department were eager to tell me about Brian's dramatic visit that morning. Their office overlooks the parking lot, and they had seen everything. Brian caught Ethan before he could reach his BMW, threw him over the hood of a car, and started pounding his face. The guards rushed over and tried to pull Brian off, but it took a stun gun to finally subdue him. Ethan had to be taken away in an ambulance. One of the guys pointed out Kyle Simmons' empty office. It looked like Kyle had quit suddenly that morning. We walked past Laura's desk. She wasn't there either, but it seemed like she was still employed. 10 minutes later, I had Kyle's home address and drove over. It was a small ranch house with no garage. A white Lexus sat in the driveway with the trunk and back doors open. As I approached, Kyle came out with an armful of clothes. He saw me, dropped everything, and bolted back inside. I tripped over the dropped clothes but saw him dash out the back door as I entered the house. I couldn't help but laugh at his reaction. Unlike Brian, I wasn't here for a fight. The house looked like a furnished rental, explaining why Kyle didn't have a moving truck. Another 10 minutes, and he would have been gone. I wasn't interested in chasing him, but I did want to see what he was leaving behind. I found a few interesting things: his cell phone on the living room table, a folder with his passport and personal documents, and a small laptop on the dining table. I gathered up the items and left. I didn't want to do anything illegal, but I couldn't resist letting the air out of one of his tires. He'd have to empty the trunk to get the spare, all while nervously looking out for me. I visited Brian in jail. His brother was already there, handling the legalities, so I just waved and smiled. Brian seemed to be in good spirits despite the circumstances. Mom was already home, and dinner was underway. We chatted briefly, and then I took the items I got from Kyle into my office to examine them. Before I could dig in, Natalie and Ashley came home from school. I decided it was best to address the situation head-on. "Hi, Dad. What's Grandma doing here? Where's Mom?" Natalie asked first. "Your mother and I decided to take a break from each other. She's going to stay with her parents for a while." Ashley started to smile while Natalie rolled her eyes and groaned. "I win! Ha, I knew it!" Ashley was gloating and her sister was scowling. "What's going on? What's so funny?" Ashley explained, "Beth and I had an argument. I said Mom was cheating on you and she said it would never happen. Looks like I was right. I never said anything about your mother cheating. We're not stupid, Dad. Don't treat us like little kids. We know what's going on." "I just didn't want to admit it. Ashley is right. Mom is cheating on you." "How did you know? I just found out." "You're a bit slow, Dad, and too trusting." Ashley put her hand on my shoulder. It was surreal, a 12-year-old trying to comfort her father. One Saturday, when Mom and Laura said they were going shopping at King of Prussia, Mom wouldn't let Ashley and me go with her. She said it was an adult shopping day and promised to make it up to us later. On Monday, 2 kids at school said they saw her with a guy in Nobles Grove. We called them liars, but one of the girls had a photo on her phone. It seemed minor, but Ashley insisted she was cheating. "Why didn't you tell me?" They both shrugged. A couple of weeks later, Emily Walker's parents saw Laura, Mom, and 2 guys at TGI Fridays in Allentown. They told Emily, who told us. I was stunned. Thank goodness Grandma had invited us for dinner. We avoided the topic during the meal, and I apologized before dessert. Fortunately, the twins dropped the subject for the rest of the night. I felt a bit of relief. I had just started exploring Kyle's laptop when his cell phone beeped with a text message. "Dear Kyle, sorry for the trouble. Love, Jessica." It came from Laura's phone, meaning she and Jessica were together. I couldn't resist replying. "Dear Jessica, thanks a lot. John." Now she knew I had Kyle's phone. I spent the next few hours sifting through files on Kyle's computer. There were no emails between him and Jessica, but I found some revealing correspondence between Kyle and friends in Lancaster. I was appalled by what I read. Jessica and I had been together nearly our entire lives, yet she had formed a closer bond with Kyle in less than a year than she had with me in almost 20. As I replaced the printer cartridge, I realized I was crying, something I rarely did. Her betrayal hurt deeply. Through my tears, I printed out several emails and photos. I would have printed more, but I ran out of paper. None of the images were explicit. All were suitable for mixed company. Beth poked her head in and asked if she could call her mother. I couldn't refuse. My mom stayed with the twins while they talked to Jessica, and she overheard everything. She didn't eavesdrop, but the girls didn't try to hide anything. Mom later told me they didn't go easy on Jessica and blamed her for everything. The conversation was brief. The emails were intriguing. Kyle had applied for and been hired as an engineer for an alternative energy project in Spain. His start date in Spain was in 6 weeks, and apparently, he hadn't informed Gilbert Engineering about his departure. I'm sure Laura knew, but no one else seemed to mention it. Kyle had all the necessary documents ready for the trip, except for his passport, which I now had. He could probably get a replacement, but he needed to act fast if he wanted to meet his start date. I suppose he could go to the police and report it stolen, but I doubted he would. Ken hadn't booked his plane tickets yet. One of his letters to a close friend explained a lot. Jessica planned to divorce me and join Kyle in Spain. She realized I would never allow her to take our daughters out of the country, so she intended to declare me an unfit father. The letter didn't go into detail about how she planned to achieve this, but it suggested it would be severe enough to revoke my visitation rights or custody of the twins. It was completely despicable. Kyle wrote this letter, so it was all rumored. I would have liked to have something directly from Jessica, but I had to make do with what I had. I printed out several copies of the letter. Mom had fallen asleep watching Leno, so I sent her to my bedroom. The girls had already gone to bed. I fell asleep on the couch, and when I woke up, there were 4 empty beer bottles on the coffee table. I awoke to the smell of fresh coffee and bacon. Mom always prepared a good breakfast. The girls were finishing their cereal when I approached the table. I had to endure some good-natured ribbing before I could start cooking the eggs. The conversation was casual until it was time for the bus. "Girls, I'm afraid your mother will try to separate us. She plans to declare me an unfit parent so she can keep you all to herself. I have no problem with shared custody if it keeps you two happy, but I won't give up my right to see you and be with you. I don't want you to have to pick sides, but I want you to know what's going on. Be careful and don't listen to any lies. Dad, we are smarter than you think. Don't worry about anything. We love Mom, but we won't let her screw you over," Ashley said with a smile, while Natalie gave me a thumbs up as they walked out the door. Mom filled my cup and sat down with hers. "Relax, John. Everyone is on your side." After showering and shaving, I put on clothes that were a bit nicer than what I usually wore. Leaving the house felt strange with 3 mobile phones in my pocket. I made a mental note to buy a cell phone charger Kyle had left behind. I probably wouldn't need it, but I wanted to be prepared. I checked into the family services office and waited for the caseworker to call me. When I finally got the call, I was surprised to recognize the woman who came to my aid. "John Terrell, I haven't seen you in over 10 years. What did you do this time?" Jenna Lawson was easy to remember. In high school, she was one of the goth girls. The goths had their own small group and were often ostracized by other kids, especially the athletes like me. She looked normal now, but I always remembered her with pink hair, black lipstick, and dark eye makeup. The goths were always rumored to be into drugs, sexual deviance, or witchcraft, though it was probably none of those things for Jenna. The sign on her desk read, J. Lawson, so I assumed she had never married. 12 years ago I could understand it, but today she looks... "What can I do for you?" Jenna interrupted my train of thought with her question. "You look great, Jenna." She laughed at my awkwardness. "You mean compared to how I looked before?" Now I felt embarrassed. "Probably, but I didn't mean to imply anything. Relax, John. I was halfway through college when I realized I was smart enough to see the world as it was, without a false facade. I've been what you would call normal for almost a decade now. I'm much more comfortable saying normal than before. Damn, that sounds patronizing. I have a hard time keeping my foot out of my mouth. You must excuse me. Forget it. Why are you here? Before we begin, I need to ask you a question. Do you have a file or report on me? Anything at all?" Her fingers danced across the keys like a pianist. "There's nothing here, John. You married Jessica Parker, right?" "Yes, and there's nothing under her name either?" "It sounds like you two are feeding your children rather than beating them. You have children, right?" "Yes, we have 12-year-old twin girls, Natalie and Ashley." "Fine. Now can we move on to the problem that brought you here?" "Jody, this is a little far-fetched and may seem hard to believe, but my wife is planning to leave me and wants to take the girls with her." "It's not hard to believe, John. We see this all the time. Shouldn't she have a reason to do something like that? Usually, when a mother comes to us, she has documents or something to support the accusation. You just checked and found nothing, right?" "That's right, John. But how do I know you're not setting me up because you did something, and she hasn't had a chance to report it yet? She may be obtaining medical information or police reports before coming to our office. Just because we don't show anything on our computer doesn't mean you didn't do anything." "You're saying I can't win?" "No, I'm not saying that. Why do you think she's going to do something like that?" I had no intention of showing anyone the email Kyle sent, but now I felt I had no choice. Why did I make copies if I wasn't going to give them to anyone? I handed one across Jenna's desk. "Where did you get this?" "I took it from a computer I obtained illegally. I know it can't be used for any legal reason, but it's proof of what's going on. The word conspiracy comes to mind, but I don't know the legal definition. I wanted to talk to you or someone in this office because I don't know what to do. I don't know how to protect myself and my daughters from something like this, and I can't afford a lawyer." Jenna Lawson relaxed in her chair. She rocked back and forth several times and then leaned toward me. "Can you come back tomorrow morning?" "Yes." "Fine. See you then. Can I keep this copy of the letter?" I nodded and turned to walk out the door. "It was nice to see you, John." I smiled and she smiled back. I forgot the goth girl and saw a new Jenna. I didn't know any lawyers, so I had to pick one from the phone book. I knew Jessica was planning to divorce me, but under the circumstances, things could change. I didn't want to take any risks. I wasn't sure what our financial situation would look like in the next few days or weeks, so I asked the lawyer for a price up front for the entire package and paid it in cash. I advised him to handle it in the fastest and easiest way possible. If Jessica wanted the house, she could have it, as it was worth less than the mortgage. I insisted on joint custody of the twins at a minimum, and full custody if possible. I agreed to pay child support, but not alimony. Brian called me on the way to lunch. He needed housing, and I, of course, offered to shelter him. We met at Taco Bell for a gourmet lunch. When I approached, a stupid smile appeared on his face. "I know you can't be that happy. What happened?" "A friend of mine who works at Community General Hospital told me a little information about Ethan. Laura went to visit him, and while she was there, Ethan's wife came in with their 2 children. Laura had no idea what she was getting into. Things got so messy that hospital security had to escort Laura out. I walked past Gilbert to talk to her, and she was no longer there. She was gone. I think she should be home now, but I'm not sure. Why didn't his wife live here with him? I don't know. Why didn't he go home to his wife and kids on the weekends? I don't know that either, and honestly, I don't care." Brian took a week off from work to sort out his affairs. I didn't know where he would sleep since my mother was also staying with us, but we decided to figure it out. He planned to go to his house to pick up some clothes and personal belongings in case Laura wasn't there. He decided he didn't want to talk to her anymore. I was on my way to see my insurance agent when my cell phone rang again. "John, this is Samuel Parker. Can you come over for a while? Can you come over so we can try to figure things out? Jessica is in complete despair, and her mother is not helping." "Who will be there?" "The 3 of us and Jessica's sister, Olivia." "I'm not sure what you're hoping to achieve, but I'll be there in about 20 minutes. It was a somber group. I took a folder of evidence with me and gave up on coffee. "Who wants to start?" I asked as I settled in. "John, Jessica seems to think you're overreacting. She claims that you were furious and made her say things that weren't true to calm you down. She says she didn't do anything wrong and you have no right to kick her out." Samuel, her father, looked at me with a mix of confusion and concern. I had the distinct impression that my dear wife was spinning a heavily embellished version of events for her parents. I could understand why she didn't want to admit to them that she had cheated, but it irritated me that she shifted the blame onto me. "What do you want me to do, Samuel? Prove she's a liar, or admit I made a mistake?" "I'd just like to see a few facts so we can better understand the situation." "What did she tell you about her friend?" "She claimed she didn't have a boyfriend, that she just had a few drinks with friends Laura worked with, and that I misinterpreted it." "Samuel, she's had over 80 phone conversations with this random friend in the last month. How many times has she called you and her mother in the last month?" Both parents looked at Jessica, who stared at her feet. "Is this random friend someone she just meets for drinks every now and then?" No one spoke when I pulled out Kyle's cell phone. "Olivia, can you read text messages? This one was sent to this random friend of hers right after I kicked her out. Why don't you read it to everyone?" Olivia read aloud. "Dear Kyle, sorry for the trouble. Love, Jessica." Olivia handed my phone back. "Does this sound like a casual friend?" Jessica covered her face with her hands. Samuel shook his head slowly. "A couple of weeks ago, Jessica and her friend Laura told everyone they were going shopping at the King of Prussia Mall. The twins begged to go with them, but their mother said no. Here are some photos taken during this trip." I handed Samuel 6 photographs. He looked at them and passed them to Martha and Olivia. "This isn't the King of Prussia, it's Noble's Grove." "Damn it, Jessica, what's going on?" For the first time, Martha spoke, her voice filled with disappointment. "Jessica, in every photo, you're holding onto that guy's hand like it's a lifeline. You don't do that with friends. It looks like the guy in these photos, Kyle, is much more than just a friend." The tears flowed quietly. This was not what Jessica had hoped for. She hadn't expected these photos. "Here are a few more. I think 2 are from Olive Garden, and 1 looks like Red Lobster. My loving wife is in all of them. I think we've seen enough, John. I'm sorry we had to call you here for this, Samuel said, clearly upset at being deceived. As I stood up, Jessica was leaving the room, sobbing like a child. We never even got to discuss the stains on her underwear, but at this point it didn't seem necessary. Samuel walked me to the door. John, I'm sorry. We can't undo what's been done, but I guarantee you it won't be ignored. He shook my hand as I left. When I got home, Mom and Brian had already set up a fold-out bed in the living room. It wasn't really a hallway, just a small extra room where I kept my computer. Brian had a pile of clothes he had taken from home. Laura wasn't there when he arrived. The most interesting thing waiting for me was the mail. Specifically, there was an official envelope from the passport department addressed to Jessica. I knew I shouldn't open it, but I couldn't help myself. It was, of course, a passport, but more precisely, a family passport, with a photo of Jessica and our 2 girls. I remembered the girls telling me they had their picture taken, but I never imagined it was for this. My passport was not in the envelope. I immediately called Samuel. Can you tell Jessica that the goods have arrived? If she needs the passport, she should send Kyle to pick it up. I'll only give it to Kyle. Sure, John. We asked Jessica to find another place to live. We have no idea where she'll go, but we'll tell her about the passport. Dinner was interesting, mostly centered around the girls. Today, a woman from Family Services came to our school, Natalie said with a shy smile. Would you like to talk more about it? Did she talk to you together or separately? We were both there at the same time. Her name was Jenna. She said you went to high school together. We went to the same high school at the same time, but we weren't together, I clarified, earning a frown from Ashley for being too smart. Pay attention, Dad. What did she talk to you about? You. She talked about you the whole time. Natalie and I agreed that she likes you. Did you figure that out from a short conversation? She talked to us for over an hour. We missed gym and geography. They were both talking at the same time, making it hard to keep up. Dinner was interrupted by Olivia's phone call. She wanted to talk. We met at McDonald's, taking a corner booth with 2 very hot coffees. John, Jessica asked me to try to explain what's going on. She couldn't do it herself. This may sound stupid, but if I have questions, how will you answer them? I don't think I can. All I can do is talk and you listen. I'm sure I'll mess something up because most of it sounded like gibberish when she told it to me. You're setting me up so you can tell me you have no answers, only excuses and justifications. I always knew you were smart, John. Let's get this over with. I have other things to do. First of all, she blames Laura for everything. Laura started cheating on Brian, and it sounded exciting and romantic. Jessica said she had never had an exciting or romantic experience. All she ever had was you, loving and reliable. When Kyle Simmons started at Gilbert, Laura convinced Jessica to join them for a drink and a bite to eat. Laura and Ethan often disappeared for some lovemaking, leaving Jessica and Kyle alone. Eventually, they started fooling around too, and soon it was a full-blown affair. Once it started, she couldn't or wouldn't stop. Kyle impressed her with his stories of what he was doing and what he planned to do. She wanted to join him and share it all. When he asked her to go to Spain, she jumped at the chance. The big problem wasn't leaving you, but leaving the girls. She knew you would never let her take them abroad, so she planned to make you look like an unfit father. Now she knows it was a mistake. After talking with the girls, she realized they are closer to you than to her. She decided not to try to take the twins if you agree to a divorce without any conditions. That's almost all. So yes, fine. Tell her to go ahead and apply. I won't dispute this if everything is as you described. Oh, John, one more thing. Jessica would like to get her passport. Do you have it with you now? Everything started to become clearer. I had no idea how she planned to do this, but I suspected she hadn't given up hope of taking the girls with her. They would resist all the way unless she had something up her sleeve. The family passport played a decisive role in the deal. Olivia, my coffee is cold. I'm going to go home and take a hot shower. Don't call me anymore. John, what the hell is wrong? Why are you so angry? You know damn well what you did. Do you two really think I'm that stupid? Go back to your whore sister and tell her there is no way she can have my daughters. Since you decided to help her, I'll have to ask you to never talk to my girls again. Olivia was talking on her cell phone as I left McDonald's. I could only guess who she was calling. I arrived at the family services office before it opened. You couldn't stay away from me, could you? Jenna walked in with a big smile and a Starbucks cup in her hand. She motioned for me to sit down and apologized for not having more coffee. I think you know that I talked to your daughters yesterday. I nodded and smiled. For some reason, I felt tongue-tied and out of my element. I remembered feeling the same way the last time I talked to her. Having been with Jessica my whole life, I never had the opportunity to develop social skills with other women, and it was showing. Is something wrong, John? Apart from that? No, I wasn't trying to be smart. I just couldn't formulate the words. I'm so sorry, Jenna. I think I'd better leave. I'm not all here this morning. I'll call you later. Before you go, I'd like you to know that I'm getting a restraining order against your wife. I can't stop her from seeing or being with the girls, but I can stop her from taking them out of state or denying you access to them. It will be delivered to her before noon. This brought a big smile to my face, but I left the office anyway. I headed to the nearest Starbucks. The coffee smelled good, but for the first time I felt depressed and confused. I drove around for a bit and then headed home. Brian told me that Laura had moved back to her parents' house near Afra, so he was only returning to his place until he could sell or rent it out. He spent the morning at the bank, the insurance company, and the law office. He wanted to try to get some money from Gilbert, but they didn't have a company policy against fraternization. His lawyer said it would be an uphill battle. He walked past the hospital and learned that Ethan was being discharged. Ethan's wife was filling out paperwork for his discharge when she saw Brian. Before he could leave, she cornered him and explained that she was trying to get Ethan to drop the charges against him. Brian was surprised when she thanked him for his help. Apparently, she had been trying to fix things with Ethan for years without success. After Brian left, I just sat on the porch and drank beer. Mom brought me a meatloaf sandwich and sat with me for a while. She didn't say anything but drank the beer. She said that Dad would come for dinner and stay the night. When Jenna Lawson pulled up, Mom went inside. Jenna sat next to me but refused the cold beer I offered. We sat there for a few seconds before she spoke. I served Jessica's papers about an hour ago. She was very angry, by the way. She was staying with her sister. I finished the long neck I was holding. I think it's good, but why do I feel so bad? In situations like this, there is nothing good, John. Just less bad. I pulled out another beer, paused, and put it back in the refrigerator. Could you come in and explain all this to the girls? I get along well with them, but no matter how carefully I express myself, it will sound like I'm blaming their mother. I'm afraid if I do this, I will somehow push them away. I don't want to do that. How about 7 tonight? I nodded as she stood up and walked to her car. She stopped halfway and looked back, smiling. I smiled back. Jenna came over that evening and spent a long time with Natalie and Ashley. Brian and I were busy clearing out anything that belonged to Laura or reminded him of her. Jody started coming to our house several times a week. Pretty soon, she was spending as much time with my mom as she was with the girls. I noticed that she was ignoring me, which suited me, but I was curious. One evening after the girls had gone to bed, she sat next to me. I felt like I had to talk to her, but she spoke first. John, do you have any wine? Something like that. My speaking skills still needed work. What do you mean? I don't have anything with a cork. I have wine, but it all has screw caps. She seemed to think it was funny. Bring me something red and bring the bottle. Well, the bottle looked more like a jug, but she didn't seem to mind. I poured it, and we drank. Finally, I forced myself to break the ice. I think the girls benefit a lot from your visits. How long will you have to see them? Oh, the twins are fine. They don't need to see me. I came here to see you. I don't understand. You barely even talk to me when you're here. I thought that was what you wanted. Not really. I was just afraid you had some kind of rule against fraternizing with clients. Her quiet laugh made me feel more comfortable. I'm amazed that you didn't even ask to see my tattoos. What tattoos? It's clear that she was trying to engage me in some frivolous conversation to try to relax me. It was a good plan, and I appreciated it. I have 4 of them. I got them when I was in high school. 3 are easy to find, but 1 is harder. Are you going to show them to me, or will I have to look for them? It'll be more fun if you watch, but I'm going to need some more wine if you're going to do this. We both laughed as I filled her glass to the brim. The hunt was much more interesting because we had to be quiet so as not to wake the girls. The fourth one was indeed in a very secluded place, and I admired her for a long time before she pushed me away. She left before the twins got out of bed, but I had a strange feeling they knew what had happened. I told my lawyer from the phone book to finish the divorce papers and deliver them. Jessica would have to accept what I suggested or handle it herself. She was still living with Olivia when the papers were served. There was no response, and they didn't even call me. Several more weeks passed. Things weren't going well for my father. Mom spent more time with him than with me. Fortunately, school was just ending, and the girls moved in with her for the summer. By the end of the summer, Dad was transferred to a nursing home. Brian and I helped Mom prepare the family home for sale, and she moved back in with me. Jody visited the girls at their mother's house all summer and spent 3 or 4 evenings a week with me. They went shopping and out to dinner together, and I was glad for the attention Ashley and Natalie were getting. At least I didn't envy them anymore. I was pretty sure they knew what was going on between Jenna and me. Jessica called the girls about once a week, but the conversations were always short and seemed tense. Most of the time, the twins didn't even tell me she called. Brian's divorce from Laura was finalized. I had no idea what my status was. Brian decided he wanted to start his own surveying business and asked me to join him. I didn't have enough money to contribute until my mom came to the rescue. When Medicare picked up my father's expenses, she thought I should use the remaining money for the business. I believe she also thought of it as an investment in her future. 3 months later, Brian and I had our own small surveying business. Fortunately, my drawing skills developed into drafting plans. About a week into the new semester, the twins were visited by their mother. They thought they would go to the guidance office to see her, but they were both disappointed to see Jessica. They tried their best to be polite and respectful, but they struggled. She told them she loved them and was sorry for how things turned out. She was going to Spain to see the windmills and promised to send postcards. She also promised to call them on their birthdays and send amazing Christmas gifts. They said she cried when she left. Jessica never called me to tell me she was leaving. But the next week, her parents showed up at the house. They apologized again for what Jessica did but made no attempt to defend or justify her actions. Ashley and Natalie were their only grandchildren, and they wanted to be able to see them. I had no problem with their request. They said Olivia was too ashamed to come to me. She was torn between her sister and her parents. 2 months later, my divorce was finalized. Jenna and I went to Red Lobster to celebrate. It was a rare evening without the girls. They didn't seem to mind. In fact, I think they were happy for us. We spent the night at a local Holiday Inn. The twins were delighted when I returned home at 10 o'clock the next morning. They didn't say anything, but they smiled from ear to ear all day. A year later, things were going great, but unfortunately Dad passed away. Mom expressed interest in moving to Florida with her sister, but didn't want to leave the girls. The twins felt that their grandmother should go. They carefully explained to me that Jenna could take her place, even though she couldn't cook as well as Mom. They also insisted they were old enough to have separate rooms. It was an obvious and good plan. The girls received birthday cards from their mother, but there was no phone call. She also sent many postcards, all showing Spanish windmills. I wasn't sure what that meant. She sent them 2 fashionable embroidered dresses for Christmas, but didn't anticipate the growth spurts of young girls entering their teens. None of them fit. Fortunately, the girls weren't disappointed. Gilbert Engineering became our largest client. Brian was pleased to learn that Ethan was now teaching electronics at Lebanon County Vocational School, a big downgrade from his previous position. He was no longer married. Laura remarried and moved to California. Kyle Simmons didn't last 6 months at his new job. He was now working in the States, but no one seemed to know where. Brian contacted his high school's alumni association to find out. My best friend always thought I got away with Kyle too easily. The strange thing was that the girls still received postcards with pictures of windmills. There was never any information on the cards, just general sentiments. Samuel told me that Jessica called them several times. She worked at a travel agency in Barcelona. She never mentioned Kyle or gave them any information about what happened between them. Jody and I went to Maryland to get married quietly a year later. Ashley and Natalie were just as excited as we were. They were looking forward to having a little goth girl as a sister. I think it was some kind of private joke between the girls and their new mother. They never let me in on it. I never understood the significance of the Spanish windmills. What would you have done in my situation? Have you ever faced a betrayal that turned your life upside down? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. I want to hear your stories.